What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Moving with Life. This is episode 121. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with me. I need to stop saying so much. I could actually have that as a note. We're going to continue down Meditations by Mr. Marcus Aurelius. Hopefully you've gotten something out of what we've been doing for the past 3 weeks now. You know, it kind of started, this little wave of momentum kind of started with Jordan P. Peterson's 42 Rules for Life, and then I ended up reading the book Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. Went through a couple of parts of in there, and then trying to figure out what I was going to do next. It's like, well, let me jump into meditations, because I haven't done anything, I guess we could say formal, that anything formal for this particular reading. It has reading, because essentially I'm also rereading, the sections that I went over book 2 last episode. Today we're going to do book 3, and I was really fiddling, and I was trying to fumbling. I was contemplating with myself which ones are the most important, and it's like, well, because as I was reading, it's like, 80 to 90% of these little paragraphs, are important, at least in me rereading them. It's like, yeah, like this is important. It's like, everything's important, so I might as well read the whole thing. But if I read the whole chapter, then this will go way past my 30-minute block that's allotted for this episode, or for these episodes. And it's like, well, I don't want to do that, because I feel like we've been on a good, again, we've been on a good path, as far as content within the episodes, and trying to make sure I maximize the 30 minutes, because sometimes I'm reaching, let's say, minute 22 or 25, and it's like, okay, I feel like this is good, but I want to do more. Or sometimes I'm barely reaching that minute mark. It's like, the biggest thing though always is to make sure I bring something that's helped me, or at least something that can help thought processes to get through whatever it is we're going through. And right now it's Stoicism. And so I want to jump right in, because there's still a good chunk of throughout book 3 that I want to go through. This is, in case you want to look for it, this is the version of it's from the Penguin Classics imprint of Penguin books. So if you want the specific one that I'm reading from, because there's different kind of editions and different interpretations of from when he wrote it to obviously the current English, and but still keeping the integrity of what he was saying then. But this is the version I have. This is the version that was gifted to me, and I've been using it. I've had it since 2017 or 16, around there. So yeah, bookmarked and all. So let's jump right into book 3 book 3 of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. We must take into our reckoning not only that life is expended day by day and the remaining balance diminishes, but also this further consideration. If we live longer, there is no guarantee that our mind will likewise retain the power to comprehend and study the world which contributes to our experience of things divine and human. If dementia sits in, there will be no failure of such faculties as breathing, feeding, imagination, desire. Before these go, the earlier extinction is one of one's proper use of oneself, one's accurate assessment of the gradations of duty, one's ability to analyze impressions, one's understanding of whether the time has come to leave this life. These and all other matters which wholly depend on trained calculation. So we must have the sense of urgency, not only for the ever closer approach of death, but also because our comprehension of the world and our ability to pay proper attention will fade before we do. It seems, because even last week, talking about just remember when you go into the world, you're going to meet all these types of people, but with that you still got to work together. This is another one of those intro paragraphs where it's like, we must take into our reckoning not only life that expended, so what the life that you use day by day, but also that the remaining balances diminishes. So when you're a baby, you have to be nourished. Someone you have to have technically external nourishment. Some in the sense of someone's nourishing you, your mom, your parents, your family who is raising you. And then you go through life and you learn how to do things for yourself. You learn how to live. You learn how to think. You learn how to you learn how to do things. You learn how to take care of yourself, be self-sufficient. And then as you get older, well, you start needing help. And that's the rhythm of life. That is what it is. And it's interesting because you could take this as, you can get cynical, you can get nihilistic, with what he said as far as towards the bottom of this paragraph. Says, so we must have a sense of urgency not only for the ever closer approach of death, but also because our comprehension of the world and our ability to pay proper attention will fade before we do. And it's a matter of fact. So because that is a fact, and that's going to happen at some point, hopefully in the farther future than the near future, you have to take advantage of what you are able to do here and now. That's a lot of what this book's going to be about. This book section is going to be about, is trying to take advantage of what we have now, and keeping ourselves even mentally here in the now, and not worrying too far about our future, and not being too drawn far to the past. Moving over to paragraph 3, Hippocrates cured many diseases, but then died of disease himself. The Chaldean astrologers foretold the deaths of so many people, then their own fated day claimed them. Alexander, Pompey, Julius Caesar annihilated whole cities time after time and slaughtered tens of thousands of horse and foot in the field of battle, and yet the moment came for them too to depart this life. Heraclitus speculated long on the conflagration of the universe, but the water of dropsy filled his guts, and he died caked in a poultice of cow dung. Vermin were the death of Democritus, and vermin of another sort killed Socrates. What of it then? You embarked, you set sail, you made port. Go ashore now. If it is to another life, nothing is empty of the gods, even on that shore. And if to insensibility you will cease to suffer pains and pleasures, no longer in thrall to a bodily vessel which is a master as far inferior as its servant is superior. One is mind and divinity, the other of clay, the other a clay of dust and blood. There's a lot going on there, but it's the matter of fact of, like, no matter what you decide you want to consider successes in your life, it will come to the end. And for some of these people, it's like they got so engulfed in whatever they were doing that itself was what killed them. But I like the last line. One is mind and divinity, the other a clay of dust and blood. So, mind and divinity, your spirituality, whatever it is you believe in, whatever it is that keeps you going, whatever that keeps you on that straight path, as straight as you can get it. And then your body, the other of clay of dust and blood, because for the most part, I mean, I'm speculating and I'm assuming, but you get buried, you have some type of ritual, and you have blood, and then you then you go from there. I'll stop there. Moving over to paragraph 3, section 4. Paragraph 4, section 3. A man such as this, if he postpones no longer his ready place among the best, is in some way a priest and minister of the gods. He responds to the divinity seated within him, and this renders the man unsullied by pleasures, unscathed by pain, untouched by any wrong, unconscious of any wickedness, a wrestler for the greatest prize of all, to avoid being thrown by any passion. So I'm cutting that a little bit short, and I'll continue. But the point is, to avoid being thrown by any. So being, getting so involved that it takes you away from the path, from the right path, even if it's something good. But then you get so engulfed, you get so just immersed, which is a good thing, because you want to have something to strive for. You want to have something, but sometimes that's what eats you up, and that kind of goes back to that other paragraph where Alexander, Pompey, Julius Caesar, they annihilated whole cities and people and horses, but yet they eventually got their career was ended at some point as well. Continuing. Died to the core. Died as in like dying clothing or whatever. Died to the core with justice, embracing with his whole heart all the experience allotted to him, rarely and only when there is great need for the common good, wondering what others may be saying or doing or thinking. He has only his own work to bring to fulfillment, and only his own fated allocation from the whole is capitalized, to claim his constant attention. As for his work, he makes it excellent. As for his lot, he is convinced it is good, and each person's appointed lot is both his fellow passenger and his driver. That sentence is kind of hard for me to decipher completely, because I even read it, I'm like, and for his lot, he is convinced it is good. And for me, in that section, it's like, and for his lot, so whatever he like his possessions, whatever his lot, his possessions, his things, whatever he's accomplished, whatever he's gained, whatever happiness it gives him, and he is convinced it's good. And each person's appointed lot is both his fellow passenger and his driver. So it's like, oh, I've gotten this, and so it's like he has it with him, but it's also like, okay, I want more, or I want to do more of this thing that gives him her that sense of success, that sense of, okay, I have something to strive for. Moving along now. Let me see. No, yep. Paragraph 6. If you discover in human life something better than justice, truth, self-control, courage, in short, something better than the self-sufficiency of your own mind, which keeps you acting in accord with true reason and accepts your inheritance of fate in all outside your choice, if, as I say, you can see something better than this, then turn to it with all your heart and enjoy the prime good you have found. So there's something better than justice, truth, self-control, courage, and you being able to self-sustain your circle, yourself. Then aim for that. But I think let me keep going. But if nothing is shown to be better than the very God that is seated in you, which has brought all your own impulses under its control, which scrutinizes your thoughts, which has self-drawn itself, as Socrates used to say, from all inducements of the senses, which has subordinated itself to the gods and takes care for men. If you find all else by comparison with all this small and paltry, then give no room for anything else. Once turned and inclined to any alternative, you will struggle thereafter to restore the primacy of that good which is yours and yours alone. I think I can stop there for that part. The main thing is, like, if you find something better than truth, self-control, justice, and courage, then aim for that. But in the case that you can't, which I think that's the argument, even that's the economy's trying to bring here, is like, you can't and you're not going to, it's like, then, don't aim for it. If it's not just truthful, allows for self-control and courage. I'll just continue. So, because it is not right that the rational and social good should be rivaled by anything of a different order, for example, the praise of the many, or power, or wealth, or the enjoyment of pleasure. All these things may seem to suit for a little while, but they can suddenly take control and carry you away. So you, I repeat, must simply and freely choose the better and hold on to it. But better is what benefits. If to your benefit as a rational being, adopt it. But if simply to your benefit as an animal, which is your instinct, your primal instincts, reject it and stick to your judgment without fanfare. Only make sure that your scrutiny is sound. So if you're gonna try to justify that something for your power, wealth, or pleasure is more important than being rational and aiming for um, something that's just and actually correct, you better have your ducks. I'd say have your ducks in a row and have a valid argument. That's what that last sentence. Or that's the way I'm interpreting it. So only make sure that your scrutiny is sound. So make sure you have a good argument as to why you're going to aim for this instant. It's basically I guess we can use in our day and age today is instant gratification. So if you're going to try to do that, then make sure your argument is good to go. Never regard as a benefit to yourself anything which will force you at some point to break your faith, to leave integrity behind, to hate, suspect, or curse another, to dissemble, to covet anything needing the secrecy of walls and drapes. A man who has put first his own mind and divinity and worships the supremacy of the God within him makes no drama in his life, no drama in his life, no hand wringing, no craving for solitude or crowds. Most of all, he will be a life of neither pursuit nor avoidance, and it is no remote concern to him whether he will retain the bodily envelope of his soul for a longer or shorter time. Even if release must come here and now, he will depart as easily as he would perform any other act that admits of integrity and decency. Throughout his life, his one precaution is that his mind should not shift to a state without affinity to a rational and social being. So if it's not rational, if it's something that's instant gratification, something that's pleasurable but not correct and it's not right, then you shouldn't do it. It's not that don't do it, because you're gonna make the choice. You know right and wrong, good and bad, so you're gonna make the choice to make that next decision. Jumping down a little bit. So discard all else and secure these few things only. Remind yourself too that each of us lives only in the present moment, a mere fragment of time. The rest is life past or uncertain future. Sure, life is a small thing, and small the cranny of the earth in which we live it. Small too even the longest fame thereafter, which is itself subject to a succession of little men who will quickly die, and no knowledge even of themselves, let alone of those long dead. Really, the interpretation behind that paragraph is, so discard all else and secure these few things only. Remind yourself too that each of us lives only in the present. So you remind yourself that you should be living in the present. The past is already there, and the uncertain future is those are also fragments of time that, just the way this is a fragment of time, the future is a fragment of time, the past is a fragment of time, and you should let that go and not worry about the uncertain future. Because life is small. That he's using small instead of short in this little part. As far as longest fame thereafter, which is itself a subject to a succession of little men who will. So he's saying that if you have a certain level of fame, that fame itself is small, and those who accomplish it are little men who quickly die. Interesting enough, longest of fame, but then they quickly die because once. And it's interesting because maybe it's changed a little bit since this times, because now we have social media, we have outlets, even him, because he probably didn't plan for meditations to be published, right? And the way it's used now as as one of the landmarks of Stoicism, but nonetheless, it's like it's like he's one of those that. But I guess he might mean like fame as in like for vanity's sake, or for public's sake. It's not like he's reached this level because his thought processes kind of bring us back down to, hey, especially when you get emotional rises out of because of external factors, then It's like, hey, we reel ourselves back to here and we move forward, and that's that's part of stoicism. Versus like the longest fame thereafter, you might be thinking, these people who are just feeding their ego. It's a whole different thing than when you're trying to live a just life and then spread that, and then pass that on to the next generation. That's one way to interpret it. I think we can go on through there for way longer than what I want to today. But it's something to think about. It's definitely something to think about. Skipping down a little bit. Asks then, what is this which is now making its impression on me? What is it composed of? How long in the nature of things will it last? What virtue is needed to meet it? Gentleness, for example, or courage, truthfulness, loyalty, simplicity, self-sufficiency, and so on. So in each case, we must say, this has come from God. This is due to a juncture of fate, the mesh of destiny, or some similar coincidence of chance. And this is from my fellow man, my kinsman, and colleague, though one does not know what accords with his own nature. But I do know, and so I treat him kindly and fairly, following the natural law of our fellowship. But at the same time, I am to give him his proper desert in matters which are morally neutral. Proper desert, I guess maybe it's like an analogy for, because it's desert, not dessert. Proper space, proper grounds, in matters which are morally neutral. That's an interesting paragraph. I definitely wanted to mention that one here, but I think it's because of the beginning. It's like, and I love when there's a lot of questions being asked, because like then you can think about it. It's like, ask then what this is, which is now making its impression on me. So whatever that thing is, what is this that's making an impression? What is this making me mad? Is it making me happy? What, and then what is that thing? Whatever it might be, an event, a actual tangible thing, as of a book or food, whatever. What is it composed of? How long in the nature of things will it last? So will it last forever? Probably not. But that's why you need to ask yourself, how long will it last? What virtue is needed to meet it? So gentleness, for example, or courage or truthfulness, loyalty, simplicity, self-sufficiency, and so on. So whatever that thing, whatever that noun, I'll say noun, person, place, thing. So in each case, we must say, this has come from God. This is due to a juncture of fate, the mesh of destiny, or some similar coincidence of chance. So somewhere between fate, destiny, and coincidence, this thing is presented to me, and now, take it for what it is. All right, we're rolling through here. Moving down, I like this part because it says, no more wandering. You are not likely to read your own jottings, your histories of the ancient Greeks and Romans, your extracts from their literature laid up for your old age. Hurry then to the end, abandon vain hopes, rescue yourself if you have any care for yourself, while the opportunity is still there. Hurry then to the end, abandon vain hopes, rescue yourself if you have any care for yourself, while the opportunity is still there. So between the first sentence, which is literally no more wandering, which I have been mentioning wandering here and there throughout these past few weeks, and even that, because I'm even reading it before recording and now going through it, live. You are not likely to read your own jottings. So, I wonder, like, okay, me writing this down, I'm not likely to reread this stuff. I'm going to keep going. Or what I think, so your histories of the ancient Greeks and Romans, your extracts from their literature laid up for your old age. So once I get older, I'm probably not going to go and reread it then. So hurry then to the end, abandon vain hopes, rescue yourself, if you have any care for yourself, while the opportunity is still there. So don't wander, like, I guess, aimlessly. Rescue yourself now. Don't wait to the end to try to think you're going to rescue yourself then. Rescue yourself then. Rescue yourself right now. Don't worry about it, and build from there. abandon vain hopes, rescue yourself. Rescue yourself from wandering. Don't wander. That's the way I'm going to leave that. And the last segment, which so I'm going to read all of, 16. Okay, so this is segment 16. Body, soul, mind. To the body belong sense perceptions, to the soul impulses, to the mind judgments. The receipt of sense impressions is shared with cattle. Response to the puppet strings of impulse is shared with wild beasts, with catamites, with a Phalaris or a Nero. Those are people. I need to look that up because they're capitalized. Having the mind as guide to what appears appropriate action is shared with those who do not believe in the gods, those who betray their country, those who get up to anything behind closed doors. So saying body is your actual sense perception, so all your senses. Your soul is, having that, your gut feeling and trust and following that gut feeling. And then your mind is your judgment, your rational thinking, your ability to make good judgments and know right from, and start developing right from wrong, and then making your judgment based on right and wrong, good and evil, to get you to where you want to go. Yeah, because having the mind as a guide to what appears appropriate action is shared with those who do not believe in the gods. So when you start deciphering good from evil, bad from good, it seems like he's saying having the mind as a guide to what appears appropriate action is shared. Big key thing is shared with those who do not believe in gods, those who betray their country, and those who get up for anything behind closed doors. So when you're too curious and you're like, don't go there, it's not safe because maybe you've already been there. That's what it seems. That's what I'm tailing it into. But that's what it seems like it's saying. Like it's saying, like for those who don't believe, those who don't have guidance, spiritual belief. For those who betray their country, that's a interesting one that I think we could probably dive into for forever here as well. And then those who get up to anything behind closed doors. So it's just a curiosity and they just jump in. It's like interesting. So if all else is held in common with the categories mentioned above, it follows that the defining characteristic of the good person is to love and embrace whatever happens to him along his thread of fate, and not to pollute the divinity which is seated within his breast, or trouble it with a welter of confused impressions, but to preserve its constant favor, in proper allegiance to God, saying only what is true, doing only what is just. That's the paragraph that I have highlighted even prior to now. That's one that I marked down, but I wanted the body, mind, and soul paragraph to kind of preface this one that I had already highlighted. Because it says there in that last little bit, it says, but to preserve its constant favor in proper allegiance to God, saying only what is true, doing only what is just. So there's your body, soul, and mind. Your body doing one thing, your soul and your gut telling you which way to go, and then your mind making that decision to make the right decision. And if all people mistrust him for a living example, decent and cheerful life, he has no quarrel with any of them, and no diversion from the road which leads to the final goal of his life. To this he must come pure, at peace, ready to depart, in unforced harmony with his fate. So maybe you have this experience and you try to pass it on to someone, the next generation, someone older than you. They sometimes it seems like because there's a lot to learn, obviously, because when people are older than you, they've lived life more than you, right? Even literally, numbers wise. But then if there's a specific incident where you have this experience and you want to share it, but they don't want to acknowledge it, whether they're young, again, whether it's younger or older, going back to whether it's younger or older, you have to be able to let it go. And that's part of the hardest part, because that's part of leadership, is sometimes you have a junior person or a senior person. This is in business. This is from what it seems in the military, based on what I've read from Jocko, and the examples he gives as well. But sometimes, and also other leaders that I've met just along the way so far, because that's definitely a struggle. It's like, when you want to help, you actually mean, you're actually genuinely, you want them to genuinely succeed. You want that person, those group of people to succeed, but they don't listen, or they're ignorant, or they're naive because they're not there yet mentally. Investing is a good one. I've been talking about investing a lot here, but I also like out in my workplace and stuff like that. Where it's like, jump in, invest, put in some cash, raise some cash, put the cash in, and let it grow, and keep putting some in, because over the long term, there's going to be benefit to what's going on right now in our economy, in our world. Anyways, but not everybody wants to listen. They're not in the same place of life as you are. So because they're not in the same life or same place of, they're not in the same place of life. They're not in the same segment of life that you are. And so that's where that last paragraph is going to tie it all in. And, and if all people mistrust him for living a simple, I put living example, for living a simple, decent, and cheerful life, he has no quarrel with any of them, and no diversion from the road which leads to the final goal of his life, that he must come pure, at peace, ready to depart in unforced harmony with his fate. So whenever it's his time to go, their time to go, then it's time, and you have to leave all that quarrel and all that argument and why you're right and why that person's right and why that person's wrong and why you're wrong. All that mixture, at the end of the day, at the end of the life, then you just leave it, you go at peace, and then you're done. I can think of, like, as far as reaching a decent and peaceful state as far as decision making and whatnot. That's a whole different thing. I'm not going to. It just even rereading it now, it just made me rethink, or made me think about, having, or being able to leave at peace. Getting to a certain level where you settle whatever uneasiness you have, and then you depart, and you're done. You're good to go. But for now, we're gonna stop right there. I hope that I gave some decent, like, parts of the reading where I was able to give my interpretation that could maybe help you, or if you listened and you got it from the actual story itself, or the stories, but the writings themselves, then that's good too. Don't forget to support the podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to take care of yourself mentally and physically. Don't forget to take care of your teams, take care of others, take care of your household. Lead from the front if you're in a leadership position. Even if you're not in a leadership position, you can still lead from the front. Lead by a good example, so that you can leave at peace. And when because when it's your time to go, we're talking about life or career, then you've done what you could to be able to be at peace with yourself, and then you can move on with your life, whichever way it leads you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all very, very soon.